Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have.
Not sure what was going on there, but it was frozen on my screen. Not sure if you guys saw the Jack Sparrow pirate intro, as we will continue to play that on all of our Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard trial videos. But today, we actually have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I shouldn't say fun, a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. But I wanted to see what you all wanted me to start with. So I have two kind of sections for this video. The first one, and what I was planning on talking about tonight, is some of the evidence that didn't come in, that I was not looking at, not listening to, keeping it out to try to understand how the jury was making their decision. And I asked you all for a vote, and the two main pieces of evidence that everybody wanted me to review and talk about is, first, the Jennifer Howell letter, which I've reviewed and I have some notes and thoughts on. The second was the Australia tapes, and I listened to a lot of, Incredibly Average. I listened to a lot of those videos, watched a lot of those videos on it, and I am going to talk about those videos. So not only am I going to discuss the content of the letter and those recordings, but I'm also going to talk about whether or not I think that they were properly or improperly excluded from the trial. So that's kind of the first half that I could talk about. The second one is what happened today. We have a motion from Johnny Depp's team for an objection for an improper argument and a motion for a curative instruction, which is funny because when Rottenborn was making this argument, my dad and I were like, that's totally improper. You cannot say that. But they didn't object. And a lot of you asked, is it proper to object during closing argument? And we said, yes, you have to object. And eventually Ben Chu did object. But we'll talk about that motion eventually. And Paula Graham is saying she wants to hear about Ben Chu's motion. We are going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about the jury question. But we knew that that was improper off the jump. You can't be Mr. Nice Guy. You've got to object when something improper happens, and they didn't. And we'll talk about how that may affect the case. So I'm just going to give it about 10 seconds for the chat to let me know. Would you rather me start with the excluded evidence and talk about that first? Or would you rather me talk about what happened today in the trial first? So you can say today in trial or excluded evidence. I'm just going to give it about 10 seconds, and whatever I hear most is what I'll talk about. All right. About 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Overwhelming majority want to talk about what happened today at trial. So let me flip to the back of my notes. I see a lot of votes for excluded evidence. We will get there as well. Don't worry. We're going to talk about all that stuff. SMC said, please start today in trial. That's what we're doing. That's where most of the votes came in. All right. You can stop voting on that now. So we'll start with what happened today in trial, but we will absolutely get to that excluded evidence. Don't you worry about that. We're going to talk about all of it tonight. And we're also, as always, going to talk about questions. Answer your questions. That's what we do on this channel. We have a lot of fun. Whether there's 50 people in the chat or 5,000 people in the chat, we always answer questions. So I appreciate everybody being here. Subscribe if you haven't already. Most of you are probably subscribers. It's about 50-50 now. Like the video if you haven't already so we can get more people in here to discuss these two topics. But first, let's talk about the jury question. The jury question was about whether or not the statement and the title of the op-ed was the statement that they were supposed to consider whether or not it was defamatory, or was it the entire op-ed? And the judge said, it's the statement, it's the title, it's not the entire op-ed. And so they ended up agreeing on an answer and getting back to the jury. The statement is what they're supposed to consider as to whether or not it was defamatory. So what does this mean? You saw how it worked. There were some live streams talking about it. And we saw them discuss it. And when the jury has a question, the lawyers have to come together and they have to, I'm trying to figure out if my wife is in here yet, to see if she's starring comments or not for me. So when it comes together, the question comes in, the lawyers argue about whether or not they're going to answer it, and then they discuss whether or not they're going to answer it, how they're going to answer it. The judge asked, is this how you want me to answer it? Is that okay if I answer it this way? And they all have to agree. And if somebody objects, they can really stop that. But they ended up getting the jury what they wanted, which was an answer to that question. And we ended up getting the answer back to the jury, but it tells us a lot more than what the question actually was. What it tells us is they've gotten through a couple of the verdict form portions at this point. So they're making their way through it. And from the jump, when everybody asked me, how long do you think this is going to take? I said, more than 1 day, less than 3 days. But if I'm being honest, you never really know how long this is all going to take. You never really know how long a jury is going to take. Sometimes they come back very quickly, and sometimes they take their time. And there are indications as to which side that favors, and we'll get there. But this shouldn't be a surprise at this point, because if Friday was the first half day, Tuesday, today, was the first full day, so that's a day and a half. Tomorrow would be 2.5 days. So I feel like all along, tomorrow is the most likely day to have a verdict, and I still feel that way. I even think it could last into Thursday, but I don't think it'll last longer than that. And I said everybody should be worried, both sides should be worried if it lasts longer than that, because now we're trending towards a hung jury. So I think it means that they've worked their way through part of this jury verdict form, and I think they're actually kind of close. I think we're going to have a decision by the end of the day tomorrow, if I had to guess. I've seen a lot of people say by lunch. I have no idea. I'd be surprised if it was by lunch. Usually they're going to get together, kind of talk through things. And then I think by the end of the day tomorrow, I think we're going to have a verdict. This question to me does not necessarily indicate if it's good or bad for Johnny Depp. I guess, here's the thing. A lot of people out there are very hook, line, and sinker on Team Johnny Depp. And I think what we're finding out is this jury is not. They're not just going down the line saying, Johnny wins, give him $50 million, Johnny wins, Amber loses. I really don't think they're doing that at this point. And I do think this question shows that. But it doesn't mean Johnny's going to lose. It also, to me, means that we're getting some unanimity, that they actually are agreeing to the answer. Because if they've already agreed on a couple of the statements, they're all in the same headspace, whichever way that is. And I still lean and think Johnny's going to win. But this jury seems like they're taking it seriously, taking their time, and I love it. I love how the jury's handling this process so far. They didn't get it done like that. They're taking their time. I think if they get it done tomorrow, really great. I think they did their job. Hopefully they, take their time going through answering everything properly and come up with a good number. So that's, I think, what we learned from that jury question. But the more interesting thing that happened today for me was the Ben Chu motion, which I have here. Unfortunately, we just can't seem to get these nighttime streams perfect because I can't share documents here on my iPad. but I do like the setup better. I think the picture's better on my iPad. And most people said the sound was better on my iPad. But so, Plaintiff John C. Depp's memorandum in support of an objection to improper argument and motion for a curative instruction and revised special verdict form. And this is interesting because to me, the special verdict form change that they want to make actually would have answered the jury's question. So it's funny how this stuff happens sometimes, right? So what they wanted to change about the verdict form was that where it says the statement was false, they wanted to add the words about Mr. Depp. The statement about Mr. Depp was false. And that to me would have answered the jury's question on all the statements. But the more interesting argument was that Rottenborn's argument that every victim of domestic abuse everywhere would get a message depending on what your decision was. That is improper. Ruling against Miss Heard sends a message that no matter what you do as an abuse victim, you always have to do more. No matter what you document, you always have to document more. No matter whom you tell, you always have to tell more people. No matter how honest you are about your own imperfections and your own shortcomings in a relationship, you have to be perfect in order for people to believe you. Don't send that message. Totally inappropriate. And the argument they make is that it improperly invites the jury to focus on a larger social objective beyond the case. And the case that they cite says prosecutors violate this edict when they stray beyond the defendant's crimes and ask the jury to convict in order to send a message to the community. Finding no error where the trial court instructed the jury to disregard parts of counsel's for plaintiff's closing arguments, which he made an improper appeal for sympathy. So they're asking for the judge to tell this jury, disregard the arguments about the bigger picture with domestic violence victims. And a vote for Amber Heard is a vote for all domestic violence victims. And a vote against Amber Heard is a vote for abusers. That's what they tried to argue, which is exactly why you have to object during the closing. What's really interesting, I don't know about this jurisdiction, but some jurisdictions, if you don't object during closing, you can't get that curative instruction. He should have objected during instruction and asked the judge to strike that portion of the argument. The judge probably would have, and he would have cured it right there. But instead, they waited. And now they may have blown it, and it could be an appellate issue that they've lost. But they've tried to work it in here and say, Judge, while the jury's still deliberating, we can cure this. We're filing our objection now. It might not be timely, but it's still before the jury's verdict. You can still fix this with a curative instruction, and we can protect it on appeal. So we'll see what the judge does. I heard the judge say she's not going to review this motion right now, but Ben Chu may just be trying to preserve the issue for appeal, which is very interesting to me. Very interesting. All right. I am going to now get to the questions about the stuff today. Let me see if there are some questions specifically about the stuff that happened today. Christopher Mays, with the jury question today, what's your guess on the verdict that comes in? I still feel like there's going to be a verdict in favor of Johnny Depp. Did you see the error in the verdict form and instructions? Was that with the about Johnny Depp? I'm not sure. I've had a slammed week of actual work, so I haven't caught everything that's been talked about. I have not seen the error in the verdict form or the instructions yet, Devin. Jesus is my best friend. Hi, Peter. You're doing great, and I've learned a lot. Do you think the jurors are having a hard time with the language on the paperwork? I don't know if they're having a hard time with the language, but they are seemingly having a hard time figuring out how to answer each of these questions, which when we talked about it, I think it was last night, and we went through the verdict forms together, a lot of these questions overlapped, and you need to have specific definitions for the words that are contained in this verdict form. Deborah B, gimme, gimme never gets LOL. That is what my mom always said. I don't know what that means. This is a golf hat from Concession, the golf course. So gimme is a golf term. That's what this is. Sarah Shamlin on a plane but couldn't miss a live. Melanie Casio, why does it have to be unanimous and not just the majority? That's the way it is. We want to make sure we get it right. And if you can't convince them unanimously, then you didn't get it right. Rebel Rocker said, well, I thought I'd feel better. Nope. I don't think it's a huge indication one way or the other. We have had a jury question one time in a trial where they said our client did not have a job, but they said, oh, where is the blank for us to put lost wages for your client? And we were like, well, that's good. At least we know we won. And we just now have to figure out how much we're going to get for the client. But we had to tell them that there is no space for lost wages. Which was very funny. But the jury question, that was a situation where the jury question gave us an indication of exactly which way this jury was leaning. Ryan Gallo, love your unbiased coverage of the trial. Great analysis always from one lawyer to another. Props and crazy, amazing Jack Sparrow. Thank you, Ryan. There is an awesome amount of lawyers that are actually in this community commenting and involved, and I love it. I love it because they're going to point stuff out that I miss. They add big time to the conversation. Oh, Devin's Law. No, error in instruction / question 3 and instead of or regarding articles, web, and print. Interesting. So we have gotten a case overturned that we lost, a criminal case, based on almost the same exact thing. An incorrect language that was on the indictment and on the jury instruction. And we actually got the entire thing thrown out after our client got convicted. And then during the second trial, the judge threw the case out. Very, very interesting. Demurred, could forgetting to object be strategic? No, it could be malpractice. You don't want to miss an opportunity for appeal. No way. Lauren Hers, why did you allow yourself to consider all evidence now? I thought you were waiting until real-time jury can consider all of the evidence. Just curious. I wanted to do that so that I could make my prediction the way that I would vote, which I've already said, and make my prediction based on the jury. But now we need time to fill content, right? While stuff's not happening, might as well do it now. And when we have the verdict, we can realize what the difference is. Because I wanted to see what all was going to come out and react in real time. But now that it's all over and we already know what came in, it's time to broaden our horizon a little bit. All right. We'll put Stay Strong's super sticker up there as we go back and talk about some of this evidence. So, the two main pieces of evidence that you wanted me to review that did not come in this trial was first, Jennifer Howell's letter. And I was going to put it up on the screen, but I have my iPad, so I can't share the screen, which is unfortunate. But I have the highlights here. And I was told on Twitter that this letter said that that Whitney Heard admitted lying, said the abuse never happened, and things like that. And while I would say I don't think it was specifically that or exactly that, I do think it would have been very strong evidence for Johnny Depp. Lines like, the truth will set you free from a lifetime of abuse. You should recant and do the right thing. You told me that you moved in with me because you were terrified of Amber Heard. People have to be willing to do what's right and tell the truth. You told me and staff, so other people, and she also provided the names of those other people to the lawyers. You told me and staff you tried to stop Amber Heard from abusing Johnny Depp, and she almost pushed you down the stairs. Nothing about Johnny holding Amber and beating her over and over again. Nothing about that. And that her prior statements with the lawyers and in the other cases were not true, and she should recant. That's pretty important to me. And so the question at the end is, should this have been excluded? And I don't think it should have been excluded. I think this should have been allowed in as impeachment evidence. Now, did Johnny's lawyers do a good enough job of laying the foundation to get this in with her cross-examination? Probably not. But I would argue that based on her testimony of how the stair incident went, that would be enough to bring this in for impeachment. SMC says that they think the letter feels faked. She goes through way too many potential objections to be real. I have no idea. But I'm reading it and people are telling me it's hers. But authenticity could have been a reason that the judge kept it out. Absolutely, that's possible. But I think if it was authentic, it should have come in to impeach Whitney Heard. Now, there are so many issues, right? Maybe Johnny's lawyers didn't want to open the door to things that Whitney Heard didn't testify to on direct. That could be a potential issue because her testimony was so pared down. We think, and again, we're on the outside, but we think that's because she never sat for her deposition. But I think you, as the party that was hurt by that, meaning Johnny Depp, Whitney Heard refused to sit for her deposition or left and was never fully deposed. So you shouldn't be damaged by that. You shouldn't be hamstrung by that. So I think they should have asked more questions on cross to lay the foundation for this. And I think this was absolutely admissible impeachment. Now, maybe it doesn't come back into evidence and go back to the jury, but I think she should have been allowed to testify about it for impeachment purposes. Ay, ay, ay. So that's one piece I think the judge missed, and that should have come in. But the next piece of evidence that didn't come in, the Australia tapes. I listened to a lot of tapes. It wasn't 5 hours, that's for sure. But these tapes were very interesting to me. A lot of Jerry Judge statements. Some of it's really hard to make out. What are they saying? It's a little bit low. On Incredibly Average's channel, there were captions. Hold on one second. So a lot of them have captions to make it easier to understand, but both sides have to agree with captions. You can't just have one side pick the captions that they want to play, especially when it's that low and hard to understand. Because when the captions run, the jury's going to think that's what it says. And we've had this happen in a lot of trials where we've argued about captions. Sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't. But there was some important content in these recordings. Everybody seems to be looking for Johnny's fingertip. Everybody's talking about the injury to Johnny. They're talking about getting him to the doctor. They do end up taking him to the doctor. Dr. Kipper and the nurse are there. Not a single person through the entirety of all the recordings I listened to in Australia mentioned Amber Heard's injuries to her face or elsewhere. No bleeding from any parts of her body. Amber saying, I can't lose him, and apologizing. I feel so stupid and lost. I didn't mean to do it. Really seems like she's implicating herself. Jerry Judge, who passed away, said she took some meds to go to sleep, which we know she did. He says there's $50,000 to $75,000 worth of damage to the house. She does have scratches on her left arm, but I've seen those before, and they look self-inflicted, which a lot of you mentioned. She says he took 10 ecstasy tablets. She's making accusations. Jerry Judge is, and some of this is bad for Johnny Depp, which is why it would have been good for Johnny Depp to let it in, because Jerry Judge was concerned he was going to OD and that he drank a ton. Kipper says she's feeling guilty at this point when she says, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't mean to hurt him. All of that very damning to Amber Heard's case. But perhaps the most interesting portion. So I will say, the person who talks the most on these videos is Jerry Judge, which is why the judge didn't let it in, because it's hearsay and he can't be cross-examined. But the most interesting portion is when he says, she did coke. I think she did coke. Who got it for her? Was it Nathan? I'm about to be angry. I can't believe she did this. She knows exactly what she's doing now. She can say she didn't mean to or didn't do it on purpose. We know what happens with her. And to me, that's Jerry Judge, a person who's not going to be cross-examined by Amber's lawyers, speculating, making accusations that Johnny's team would have argued were true. So for the truth of the matter asserted. So I really think the judge actually made the correct call in not allowing these audio tapes in. Now, I do think the judge should have let in Amber's comments, apologizing, saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to hurt him. And do you think he'll still love me? I don't want to leave. I want to be with him. All of those comments, I think, should have come in. And I don't remember hearing them. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But the Jerry Judge comments, as damning as they are to Amber Heard, and the commotion and everything going on where everybody's focused on Johnny's injury and nobody's focused on Amber Heard's injuries because of the lack of injuries, is my guess, where she describes being bloodied up, hands, toes, face, other parts of her body. That, to me, is incredibly damning after once again she created this mountain of abuse in Australia. But I actually think the judge made the right call in keeping most, if not all, of the Australia tapes out. As much as you all are going to disagree with me and not like me for that, I think they were full of hearsay and highly speculative, and they were going to try to use Jerry Judge's comments as the truth, when in fact, nobody actually saw the fight occur. So nobody was giving a firsthand account besides Johnny and Amber, who both seemed to be on drugs and alcohol. Although they said Jerry even said Amber didn't seem like she was drunk. So I guess other drugs could have come into play. So I think the Jennifer Howell letter should have come in. I think the Australia tapes were properly excluded. And I think both are damning to Amber Heard. I don't think either are quite as strong as I thought they were going to be based on everybody telling me. I thought there was going to be more. But definitely good evidence for Johnny Depp that was kept out. I don't think either will be a huge issue on appeal. I don't think either will be the difference maker on appeal. All right, so that was the fun kind of new information to bring to the table about what happened and what happened today and how that new evidence that was excluded, new evidence to me, would have affected me and whether or not I think it's going to come in. So now we're going to transition into the question and answer portion. So get your questions in if you have them, and we'll talk through all of them. We'll get through as many of them as we can tonight before we sign off. Thanks everybody for jumping in. Almost 10,000 in the chat. So make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. And if you're one of the 50% that hasn't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. What are you doing? All right, let's talk through some questions. Terry W. Do you think JD getting the role in Beetlejuice 2 will influence the juror's decision? That means he can, in fact, get work. A, they shouldn't be looking at that. B, they didn't say he was going to lose roles in perpetuity. They said he lost everything, but that $50 million they're trying to connect to Pirates 6, Fantastic Beasts, and some indie films. So they didn't say $600 million, which he could make the rest of his career. They said $50 million. So we'll see, but the jury shouldn't know about that. It didn't come into evidence. JD playing with Jeff Beck, problems. He was great. Stan Anderson asks. I mean, if the jury saw that, they could say, was he punking us? Was he faking it? Like, was it really not that big of a deal to him? I do think they could say that, but I don't know. Depends on the person to person. Tori, can you please read the whole letter if you have it? I was going to, but wasn't able to share it on the screen. Emily asks, what happens if the jury reaches a decision at 5 p.m.? Would it be read the same night or would it be read the next day? Love the channel. Thank you, Emily. It will be read the same day. The judge would let them stay late if they were close. And that's what I said. If they leave at 5 o'clock, they're not that close. So I don't think we're going to have a verdict at 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I think it's going to last into the late afternoon tomorrow, maybe even late tomorrow. Jesus is my best friend. Hi, Pete. Thanks for keeping your channel clean. God bless. Marie, Long Island, New York. Thanks, Marie. Deborah B. Hey, is that an olive tree behind you? I agree with your timeline. I have no idea. It looks like, yeah, that looks like there's olives in it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big tree guy, but yes, looks like you're correct, Deborah. Good eye. Mighty Mouse, I work with DV victims. Not once did I ever doubt the person, not once. You can tell when people are for real. Amber is not a DV victim, I think is what you meant. Jason Young, with the jury question about number C, 1 and 3, and the instructions about republication, do you think they are trying to tie the tweet she sent and the title of the op-ed to be a false statement? I think that they are trying to figure out what they're looking at. They heard a lot of statements. They heard one set of lawyers talk about specific statements. The other set of lawyers talk about the whole op-ed. One set of lawyers talk about the print copy. The other talk about the electronic copy. Both lawyers arguing about whether a tweet is or is not republication. I don't think they got a ton of guidance on it. So I think they're going to have to make the determination. And if there are people in their 20s, I think they know. When somebody tweets something out like this that they wrote, I think they are going to attach it as Amber Heard's own words. That's just a guess. Because legally speaking, I don't know. I don't feel like the jury instruction was clear on republication. They both argued it differently in closing as to whether or not you had to add content or change content or ratify it. It was really interesting to me. And I think that's what the jury's trying to figure out is what comments they're looking at, what it means to actually make a comment or a statement. Lisa F. Jury is smart enough to discard social justice issues in regard to this trial. Are there other jury instructions we cannot see? Can the wording Team Depp was denied affect how the jury must rule? This question's a little bit vague. Can the wording Team Depp was denied? What wording specifically do you mean? There are lots of jury instructions. I'm sure we can see them all online, but I don't know if you've seen them all. I haven't seen them all. The judge read them all. If you listen, you can listen back to the replay. You can hear the judge read all of the jury instructions to the jury, and that's what they get. And Devin said she misread something as a and instead of an or, which is, I can't explain to you how important that is in the law. Stay strong. This trial has been amazing. I thought I loved Law and Order. Oh boy. Doug D. Have you decided if you're going to live stream the verdict? Yes, I am. Well, I say, yes, I am. If I'm in a deposition or a mediation or something, I'm not going to be able to jump on a live stream. But if I am at all available, which tomorrow, let's just take a real live look at the calendar. Tomorrow is June 1st. We're into another month. I have client conference in the morning, an interview at 10:30, a potential client call at 11, and then I'm prepping for trial all afternoon. So I have a trial in a couple weeks coming up. I'll be prepping for trial afternoon, which means I can hop on a live stream just about any time all afternoon and continue prepping after it's over. So hopefully if the verdict comes out tomorrow, I will absolutely be able to live stream it. DV, can you please explain how the appeal process works for both of them? How long it takes to a retrial? Does the other party have to pay or does it get frozen? Is the second trial is the same as the first one except the jurors? So it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Each side gets to choose how they're going to try their case the second time. They can both appeal. Whoever loses can appeal. Actually, if you win and you don't get as much money as you want, you can appeal. How long does it take? There's no individual timeline. It can take years. Usually the other party doesn't have to pay pending an appeal. Some jurisdictions make you put it in a court's registry. Some jurisdictions will freeze accounts or freeze that amount. Sometimes you can pay pending an appeal. So it really depends on the jurisdiction and what the appeal is, how strong the appeal is. So there's a lot we still don't know, but we will definitely follow whoever appeals this verdict. Phil DeFunk. Remember a while back, I told you were going to be over 100K by the summertime, told you so. Phil, I'm a guy who can admit when he's wrong, and I was wrong. I was trying to hit 50K by the end of this trial. That was my honest goal. And I was like, Phil DeFunk and them boys are crazy about getting to 100K, but you all are right, and this has been fun. And I dressed up like Jack Sparrow. JB on WFLA today couldn't believe it. He was laughing hard about it. A savage. Team Johnny, but I have a concern about the audios of JD using bad language toward Amber Heard. Isn't this domestic violence? What do you think the jurors think? You, thank you. I think it's bad. I think that it can be an indication of that he could fly off the handle kind of thing. And I think the jury's got to decide whether they believe Amber that it did end up going into domestic violence. And whether or not that's enough to make her a victim of domestic violence. These are all what we call jury questions and fact-finding questions. So that's why it's up to the jury. If I was a juror, I would say no. I don't think that I think Johnny Depp was able to show that Amber Heard's testimony was not credible and not reliable. I'm not going to say she lied, but based on all the evidence and weighing all the evidence, that's how I would come down as a juror. Shauna Brennan, I'm late, but sure am glad to see you after the tornado went over Clearwater. Yes, sure hope there wasn't too much damage in Tampa Bay. I haven't seen that much damage right now, but thank you, Shauna, for the kind words. Stan Anderson, did JD with Jeff Beck cause problems? By the way, great. I don't know. I mean, that's just going to depend on how a jury feels about it. Moon, hey, I'm sorry if this is a repeat and answered, but why do you think somebody called Amber out flatly? Her sister's stare story didn't match hers, unless I missed it, but seems so vital. Thank you. I agree with you. I don't think that they pointed out that difference enough. Maybe, and this is what happens sometimes, you've got to pick your spots, got to pick your battles. You can't say everything that happened in a 6-week trial in a 2-hour closing, okay? So we have to realize that, number one. Number two, maybe they didn't feel like it was clear enough to make that distinction. Now, I put it on my top 10 list when I did the mock closing, as you all remember. That was something I thought was important enough, that it wasn't just Johnny Depp's witnesses that contradicted Amber. It was also her own witnesses. But they decided it didn't make their top 10 list. There's Australia tapes. Man, yeah, stay strong. There's a lot. Nicholas, is what was thrown out grounds for appeal? It's something that's going to be on the list probably. None of it to me really rises to that level. I do think the arguments Rottenborn made were really bad. And I think the judge would have struck them and instructed him not to make that argument if Johnny Depp's lawyers would have objected during closing, but they didn't. Jake Erton, I've watched many different lawyer channels to get some insights on the trial process. While they each bring something different to me, that's good. You've been by far the best. Well, thank you. Fair, balanced, and great feedback throughout. Jake, high praise. I appreciate that, man. Kelly Fuller, my biggest issue since she first testified is she made it sound like he beat her from the moment they got together until she left him. There is just no way that is true, especially when you consider that she didn't want to leave. She kept wanting him there with her at Coachella in Australia. She was telling everybody not to let him leave. We have pictures that do not show the mass amount of damage that she explained. So I agree with her. Melanie Casio, so as her lawyer, how do you believe her after hearing all the audio? It's not a bad point. But I will say that as I was listening to it, I couldn't help but read Incredibly Average's captions. Maybe if I listen closer, it doesn't quite say what the captions say. But I don't know. It's a good question. Patty McLeod. JH's letter should have been in evidence, could have redacted some of it, not in either testimony, right? I think it should have come out just as impeachment. She should have been able to testify about it. The letter itself, no, but she should have been able to testify that I wrote, Whitney heard this letter because she told me she lied. She told my staff she lied. She told us she was afraid of Amber. She told us what Amber did on the stairs. She should have just been able to testify about it, in my opinion, not the actual letter coming into evidence. Steelers girl. I've enjoyed the last few weeks listening to your commentary, even as a trial watching buff as myself. Who knows the ins and outs of law/trials? I appreciate that you kept your comments to legality. Awesome, Captain Peter Sparrow. Thank you, Steelers girl. You excited about Kenny Pickett? What do you think? Reading Frenzy. Also interesting, Kipper saying she shattered the bone. This is her guilt talking. Needs strong guy taking her back to LA because she's manipulative. And it ended up being Ben King. And you heard Jerry Judge and all of them discuss how that was going to happen. Tell her whatever she needs to hear for right now. And he sweet talked her because they want to get her stuff and get her out of there. It doesn't seem like she was abused the way that she said she was, if that's how everything was kind of playing out in Australia. Terry Tipton, thank you for the super sticker. Carrie Barton, I'm so nervous. What does it look like for Johnny? He doesn't really want money, just rep, career. What's your thoughts? I think he's gotten that. I really think he's gotten the most important thing to him, clearing his name in the public, revitalizing his career, redeeming himself. I really think he's gotten a lot of that, but I don't think he wants them to say that her statements weren't false, meaning they were true. And I don't think he wants them to say that Adam Waldman's statements were false. I do think that would hurt him publicly. Kim CLLX. Australia tapes AH lists everything she took that night. She wasn't sober and she had been drinking. I don't know if you listened to the whole tape. Yes, but she said Johnny also took a ton and drank a ton. She said she didn't drink anything. And there was some consistencies that he took 10 ecstasy or MDMA pills. There were some consistencies, and yes, she did take things as well, but so did Johnny. So whose testimony are you going to believe more? That's tough when everybody is doing all sorts of illegal substances. Demurred. Why do you think JD's team didn't emphasize AH's Provigil and other drug, alcohol abuse more? I agree. Johnny wasn't the only one using drugs and alcohol. That's what I would have argued. Sharon Sullivan, thank you for the super chat. Shalon Flores. Camille tries to bring in just Amber's statement during cross of AH, but judge sustained the objection. They showed a video of TMZ reporting that AH sent the video. Why do you think that didn't come in? They showed a video of TMZ reporting that she sent it. They would have to show that they actually have proof and it wasn't based on hearsay. It sounded to me like they didn't have actual proof that it was Amber. And they can get these things anonymously, and companies like TMZ are usually under that don't ask, don't tell type of policy, where if we get the juice and we get the tea, we're going to spill it and we want the copyright. So however we can get that, that's fine. We don't ask questions. And my guess is that's kind of how they got it. So they couldn't really prove who they got it from. But based on the timeline and how it all worked out and based on their other interactions with Amber, I think the jury could deduce that it was from Amber. We'll see, though. Deborah D. Later on the tape, she admits only popping Xanax, ecstasy, Adderall, hallucinogens to Jerry. Did you hear that? I thought, when I listened to it again, this is one of the problems. I thought she said Johnny did that. I think she said Johnny popped all that. So if we were two jurors listening to that unclear audio, maybe we have a little disagreement. Disco Direct. Sorry if it has been asked, Peter, but did you ever read Kate James's depo for the UK trial where she said AH stole her rape experience? I did not. I did not read that. I am going to do a UK versus US trial comparison eventually. That's kind of the next thing I'm going to look into. I'm not going to read all the depos, but I will review some of the differences, and this sounds like one of them. Julio. Johnny said the only solace he had as a teen was music. So I don't see him being in the UK as Jeff Beck as anything other than he finally got to speak out and the weight of the last 6 years lifting. That's fine, Julie. And I tend to agree with you. It doesn't bother me. But some jurors could see that differently. Lauren Hertz, glad you think the jury may side with Jay. Following since UK sometimes feels like an echo chamber, but I'm worried legally. What makes you think lay persons understand? Because jurors make these decisions all the time, and they make them unanimously all the time. I don't know if it's going to be a big verdict, but I do think that the evidence is that Amber Heard is lacking enough credibility for them to find that it was defamation and that the statements were false. Doesn't guarantee they're going to do it. And I don't feel very strongly about it. That's my lean at this point. Schmeconomics. Was republication important because it was the only way to sue Amber Heard through the retweet? Otherwise, they would have had to sue the Washington Post. I think they tried to go at it from two different angles. The tweet and that she wrote it with the ACLU, so it was her words anyways. I think they tried to attack it from both angles. And I think the jury could find it was her words in either angle. Lisa F. Wasn't there a comment? Now, the only one where they had to have the tweet was the title because she didn't write the title. Lisa F. Wasn't there a comment by JJ in Australia referencing something like she did it first or she started it, meaning J Depp pushed / or other AH back? Yes, but it was all based on words said by other people, by Amber, by Johnny, by Kipper, and he was kind of giving a summary to the person he was talking to on the phone, which is purely hearsay and speculation because he was not there. So yes, he did say that, but I don't feel like it was reliable enough to come in as evidence. In forum shopping, this is from Demurd. Why did they choose Virginia requiring higher duty of clear and convincing to prove malice and additional preponderance to prove basic elements? Because I don't know if the lawyers really worry that a jury's going to see those two differences in burden. They weren't really highlighted that much. I feel like if they think they were false, they think they were false. Usually a jury's not like, oh, is it 50.1% or 75%? They're just like, do we think these statements are false? Yes, check the box for yes. No, check the box for no. And I think Virginia was just there. They couldn't pick anywhere they wanted. It was basically Virginia or California. And Virginia is a much better jurisdiction for this than California. That's for sure. Paul Dupree. I'm not new to LawTube, but I'm so happy to have found your channel because of this trial. Cheers from New Orleans. Keep up the phenomenal unbiased commentary. Thank you, Paul. In law school, I had the Mardi Gras sports law moot court competition at Tulane School of Law during Mardi Gras. And it was wild, and we did really well at it. So it was fun. Hooligan, thank you for the new member. And if anybody else wants to join, membership is in the video description. And our Twitter and Instagram handle is at Tragos Law right here. Jump on there, follow us on there. We're getting a lot of followers on there. We have like 6,000-7,000 on each. So let's bump that up. Let's get that over 10,000 on each. Jump over there and follow if you're on those platforms. Lisa F., we hit that chew motion today. SMC, I'm now watching your Theranos coverage. So good. I highly recommend to all looking for what's next. Yes, go check those out. Joyce, thank you so much for the super sticker. Maria S. Rottenborn inflicted the fear of mistrial into those jurors. Now they are overthinking it. Confusing instructions don't help Johnny Depp either. I agree with the second part for sure. Stacey Walpole, was there any not admitted evidence favorable to Amber Heard? Well, she says she has ear, nose, and throat records that say that she has multiple breaks in her nose. That wasn't admitted, and that would have been helpful to her. That's the only thing I heard and saw. And then she says she has a bunch of other pictures that they didn't let in. Sabrina Girl, if the judge heard the Australia audio, doesn't that make her think she is lying on the stand about the incident? Also, I'm sure the judge has an opinion, although it's supposed to be unbiased. What do you think? I don't think the audio is quite as clear as you think, and I think it's a bunch of people's opinions of what they think happened and who they believe there. They don't come out and say, Amber doesn't come out and say, I chopped Johnny's finger off, or I threw a bottle and got his finger off, and he didn't touch me. It's not like she says that. It's not that clear cut. So my guess is the judge is not letting her mind go there and making those decisions. That's usually how judges are, and they stay unbiased about it. They really try to take the evidence piece by piece to see if it's admissible. In my opinion, the most damning evidence is that argument. Please check Incredibly Average's 27-minute long video around 23:40, where JD said, you're defending yourself against something I didn't do. I didn't say you did it. I said I can expect it next. I did hear that. Barbara Sturback, couldn't the judge have admonished them for an improper argument? Yes, but only if it gets objected to. The judge should not insert herself into the trial and do the lawyer's job for him. That's the lawyer's job. no medical records from Beverly LM. Moon. Also, it's so appreciated. You know your stuff and nice. Kind of depressing to see full-blown adults act like catty mean girls during this trial. Thanks. Thank you, Moon. Next time I date an abuser, I'm going to buy a knife that says until death. Stay strong, said. Audrey Jensen. You don't creepy laugh at someone you're afraid of. I agree with you. New Chris. Hi, I'm new here. Is this channel fun? That ain't true. You're not new here, new Chris. Might as well be old Chris by now. JB. Who writes the jury questionnaire? The jury questionnaire or the verdict form? The jury questionnaire, sometimes the court writes, but the verdict form and all the jury instructions are drafted by the lawyers. They're usually based on form instructions, and then the two lawyers have to agree. They'll provide them to the judge, and then they provide them as agreed upon jury instructions or plaintiff's proposed or defendant's proposed jury instructions, and the judge ends up determining which jury instruction goes back to the jury if they can't agree on a full set. It's a big process. Andy Summers, I heard JD got a movie deal to Beetlejuice 2. I heard that too. I don't know if it's true. JL, TMZ boss is an attorney really strict on copyright. I'm sure he is. Or she. Lorna Hamilton, do you think the jurors would feel disrespected if Johnny and Amber don't come for the verdict as they gave up 6 weeks of their life for this? They may, but I also don't think they're going to know whether or not they're going to show up at this point. TC, wait, the jury shouldn't even know that he performed this weekend unless they are breach, right? Correct. That's what I said. They shouldn't even know that. But if they do know, I think it could be some of them think it's a bigger deal than others. DV is a new member. Welcome. Veeth Kilbert. Were Chu/Camille team working on this trial full time the last few years? A, how do you think the payment arrangement works for lawyers? Depp has $2 or money to spare. No way they're working on this full time. It was probably taking a lot of their time. In these 6 weeks, they were working on it full time. But they bill hourly, and whatever they bill hourly, they probably give Johnny Depp a bill at the end of the month and he pays it. Deanna Kelly is a new member. Amy Patterson, how would the jury know where Johnny Depp is right now? They wouldn't. Michelle Dragonich Works is a new member. Mercedes, glassing is a serious crime in Australia. Is that why they want her out of the country quickly? Is that why Johnny first said he hurt himself? I'm not sure. I am not sure. Deborah D. Only is how minimizes the things she has done. Kelly Fuller. Best moment. TMZ guys clap back at Elaine. DUI guy's expression in the gallery was hilarious. Mandy Bishop. If I was a juror, I'd be mad. JD is off having fun while I'm stuck here, but I'm on JD's team though. Mandy, I'm glad you did this. I'm glad you said this because A lot of people probably aren't saying it. And a lot of people are, in the bag for Johnny Depp, which I understand. But jurors will differ. Some would think it was a big deal. Some would think it was not. We've already heard people saying it wasn't a big deal. So I'm glad you stepped up and said, I kind of would think it was a big deal. And that's okay to have a difference of opinion, because the chances are when you put 7 people in a room, they're all not going to sit there and agree about everything. They may come to a unanimous verdict, but they're not going to agree on everything. Troy Nushke. How will the jury know where JD is after a closing argument? They won't. Rita Joe. The scar tissue and breaks in her nose are from her rhinoplasty around 2006, 2008. She didn't want all the medical records admitted. I get it. But they're asking me to find something that may have been good for her. Lindsay Levinson. Did you notice AH said I was defending against a man who beats me up 5 years more than once in final testimony when defending to Camille, so 2011. None of the timelines made sense. I mean, that's another issue I have with some of her stories. Carrie Barton. So what is Johnny supposed to do till the verdict? He loves music and it takes his mind off things. Can't hold that against him. Can they? Yes, they can, Carrie. They can hold anything they want against whoever they want. Now, they're not supposed to be looking at that stuff, but if they, hold it against him that he's rich, they shouldn't, but they could. And that's the interesting part about a jury system. You don't know what they're looking at. Monica T. The link to join your membership isn't working, and I don't see the join button. I've been trying to join. Monica, let's circle back. So some people say they have trouble on the phone and have to do it on a computer. So I don't know if that's the issue, but we'll try to work with you to get that fixed. DV. Unpopular opinion. Do you think Rottenborn is a better lawyer than Chu? He made the best with what he had to work with, and there misses on Chu's side. Here's what I'll say. I think Rottenborn gives a different style than Chu, and I do like that style. I like the way he presents. I didn't like the way that he cross-examined, and I didn't like the way he impeached witnesses. And I think Chu has a better overall persona in depositions and speaking to the judge and things like that. But I do think Rottenborn was more structured and put together, especially in closing. Thank you, Awesome America. Model railroading. Please explain, this is Ross Moon, why the ACLU was going after Johnny Depp for money. So yeah, there was something in the media about $86,000 that the ACLU is trying to collect from Johnny Depp. The reason they're trying to do that is because they're saying because he dragged them into this case, they had to spend that much money. Now, if I'm the judge obviously thought this information was reliable and necessary and admissible evidence. So she allowed Johnny Depp to gather it. They could have just handed it all over to Johnny Depp. But because they decided to fight it, put lawyers on it, and do all this work, they had to pay money. My guess is that's going to come down the pipe as you got to cover your own attorney's fees. You chose to do these things. Johnny Depp has a right as a citizen to have a trial by jury, and he can get the relevant evidence to his case, which is all he did. Now, if they say that $86,000 was something that Johnny was trying to get, that the judge ended up not allowing him to get, and that he put them on this wild goose chase, then he may have to pay them some of that money. Jennifer Stokes with the big super chat. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I feel like I should answer some other questions while this is up here. So other people are asking when I think a verdict's going to come in. I do think it's going to come in tomorrow. I don't necessarily think it's going to be first half of the day or anything like that. Over 10,000 people in the chat. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe. And we're doing other videos now, not just Depp v. Heard. We did the Dan Markel FSU Law Professor Murder Trial recap today if you want to check that out on our channel. And we've got more trials and more cases to cover and different topics like law school, LSAT, all things like that. So make sure you check that out on our channel if you haven't already. Thanks again, Jennifer. I believe Amber Heard's ENT is from Steelers Girl. Records revealed that she had considerable amount of scar tissue, which can a habitual cocaine user. Specific actors came out publicly on PCP, said Amber is a coke addict. Makes sense. Roxanne wins. They wanted Amber Heard out of Australia quickly because of the dogs and the glassing. JD went back to work. Who cares? Amber went back to her $1 million home. Stay strong. I agree that Johnny would be on the DL for a bit. The stakes are huge. April Wright, what does partner and associate mean in a law firm? There are different kind of partners and different kind of associates, but generally speaking, partners are shareholders or owners of the law firm. Not all partners are equity partners. Some, basically, you split the profit. So if the firm makes X amount of dollars, you split that. If you're an associate, you're usually making a salary, maybe plus commission or what you bring in, and an eat what you kill type of situation. But an associate is a lower level lawyer. They have junior associates, senior associates. They have junior partners, senior partners. Partners are usually the bosses. Associates are usually the lower level lawyers. Still lawyers and still, do well, but misunderstood. What is your opinion on AH constantly addressing the jury? I didn't love it. I thought it was forced. Thought it was weird, especially when she's being crossed and clearly talking to Camille and looking at the jury. It just looked weird. If you're going to explain something or tell a story to the jury, fine. Look at the jury and explain something to the jury, especially experts. This is how it works. But it's very weird when she did it when she was clearly talking to Camille. Rebecca McElwee is a new member. Osmerica Model Railroading. The laws are strict to glass and domestic violence. In Australia, the police would charge her even without Johnny pressing charges. Interesting. Lauren Hertz. Regarding Chu's motion plus about Depp helping juror confusion, when does this get addressed since the judge disregarded it? It's a behind closed chambers thing. Seems extremely important and grounds for mistrial. Not going to be grounds for mistrial. And frankly, they had multiple charge conferences where they talked about these jury instructions, and the judge is probably annoyed that if they wanted this to happen and thought it was this important, why didn't they bring it up before? So the judge is actually, I think, right to not hear this motion. They had their opportunity to make these arguments, and they didn't make them. So I'm not going to disagree with the judge here. I think she made the right call in not allowing them to argue these. Crystal, not sure why it would matter that he's playing with Jeff Beck when he's been touring with vampires for a couple of years. The Squid Gal. If Johnny was sitting in a hotel in Virginia stressing about the verdict, he might turn to drinking drugs. Doing a concert is a better way to deal with stress, in my opinion. Just, I want to make this clear. I don't think it's wrong what he's doing at all. All I'm saying is some jurors could think he's fine. His career's fine. He's no big deal, no long-term emotional damage. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just saying. People are asking, could a jury infer that? Yes, I think they could. Desa Craig, are you married? Yes, I am. 12 years, coming up on 12 years. Z Martin, I've enjoyed all your coverage and have tried to send you money. Haha, maybe it will work this time. It did. Love your show and family. Thank you, Z, and thank you for being a member as well. Alejandra Saba Zarzar. Hello from Lima, Peru. Love your style. I'm studying law in my country. I followed the whole trial and your lives. Well, thank you, Alejandra. And we're going to do some stuff talking about law school here, the LSAT, the bar. We are going to do some videos on that. So make sure you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and hit that bell so you can know whenever we pop up new videos. So also important to hit the bell is for the verdict. If you want to come check it out with me, I'm sure every lawyer on YouTube is going to be doing it, but some of you will decide to come join me. We will talk through the verdict, how they got there, why they got there, and what this means going forward. Zello Yellow, off topic from Daybell videos you posted about the lawyer change. How does a defense lawyer become able to defend capital cases? So usually it's based off experience and number of capital cases that you've handled. Sometimes taking a course can get it for you. Sometimes sitting second chair, being involved even as a prosecutor, as in a prior career. The experience is really how you do it. But in a lot of jurisdictions, a defendant can waive that requirement of having somebody that's capital certified. Vic and Wes, I agree with you. Amber's portions of the Australia audio should have been kept in. I'm a DV survivor, and the laughing and mocking at JD really bothered me. Kathy, amen. JD donated $100K to the ACLU. Now they sue him for 86. The irony, right? The gall. All right. We're coming close, just over an hour mark, coming close to the end of the video. And I appreciate everybody joining in. I appreciate everybody coming on this live. Like the video on your way out. Tell your friends about us so they can come check us out. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter right here at Tragos Law. Join the membership, and just keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys make this fun. The questions are fun. You're all the best. I appreciate it, Alex Maldonado. This was fun, but we're going to take off, and we are going to be back as soon as there's a verdict. There's a verdict tomorrow. We'll be back. Barbara just followed on Instagram. That's awesome. Thank you guys for all joining us. Hit the like button on your way out. I'm out of here. It was fun.